Thanks very much, Bill. Really appreciate that. I'm going to ask Mike Pepcorn to come up in a minute, but for those of you who haven't heard the Mike Pepcorn story as much as those of us in the division know it, Mike has Midwest roots. He was born in Fargo, North Dakota, something that he and I share. We were both born in Fargo, North Dakota. He is a graduate of Gustavus Adolphus as an undergraduate in Minnesota and went to University of Minnesota Medical School. Came out to the UW to do a PhD in experimental path and biochemistry, and then he did a pathology residency and then did dermatology residency. So you can see Mike never was quite satisfied with the level of excellence that he had achieved until, I think he deserves to be satisfied now, but a pretty remarkable story. He became an assistant professor in the Division of Dermatology and then was recruited away to the University of Utah, where he spent 10 years and then came back, became an associate professor and then a professor in our program. And he clearly was one of our most outstanding faculty members during the time he was here in terms of publications, national recognition, and his research excellence. Then he became one of the founding members of DermPath Northwest, where they do dermatopathology. And I will say Mike was one of the only dermatopathologists that had an NIH grant in the days when he worked at the University of Washington. There just aren't very many of that species out there. He continues to teach our residents, early in the morning, like 6:30 in the morning on Wednesdays or Thursdays. He runs a pigmented lesion clinic, and he still has NIH funding with Joanne Elmore on a melanoma-related project. So pretty remarkable story, and Mike never ceases to amaze me. If you can see that, maybe turn that down a little bit, but one of the points of amazement is Mike is a mountain climber. This is Mount McKinley or Denali, and Mike made it to the top a couple of years ago. So that was a fairly remarkable accomplishment. Not too long before he left on that adventure, he brought a bottle or two of Shiraz into my office and told me that he was planning to endow a chair in dermatology and that he wanted it to be for a mid-career a person who really had demonstrated excellence. And so he clearly, along with the search committee and those of us that had a chance to make input into this, we found a really, truly outstanding first Pepcorn shareholder. So Mike, why don't you come on up and say a couple words.
Well, thank you so much, and thanks to everyone for attending. This, for me, is a special occasion that the memories for which will long endure. Well, it goes without much elaboration that our lives are enhanced to the degree that we remain passionate about things, and I remain passionate about academic dermatology. Although I'm no longer a full-time academic, for 20 years I pursued the clinician scientist pathway in academia, and as John mentioned, I remain active, at least in a part-time fashion at UW-Derm. So my time in academics taught me that the pathway to success as a clinician scientist in dermatology is an exceptionally difficult one, and it takes an exceptional person to survive, let alone thrive, as a clinician scientist in present-day academic derm. Paul is such a person, and I feel privileged to contribute in some small way to his ongoing success. So why should those of you in clinical dermatology care about academia? I would argue that our understanding of skin disease in many ways is still rather rudimentary. One could simply attend a monthly Seattle Derm patient care conference to convince oneself of that fact. So our future credibility depends on progress at the basic level in understanding the mechanisms underlying skin disease. Unfortunately, during the last several decades, the challenges for wannabe academics, in my view, has worsened, and the prospects for funding from governmental sources, NIH particularly, it has not improved. So the future, one could be pessimistic based upon just the facts as we know it now, but predicting the future, of course, is a dicey proposition. Hopefully I'm wrong about that. So alternative sources for research funding in Durham are clearly needed, and those of you who've contributed money to the Dermatology Foundation should continue to do so. As John summarized my story, I acknowledge the critical role that UW Dermatology played in my life, enabling me to end up in a place where I am now. And as I look around the room, although there's a bit of glare here, I think there are several of you out there who are similarly situated, where there is to some degree a debt of obligation to UW Dermatology. And so for those of you out there, I issue a challenge. Consider UW Durham in your philanthropy, and consider UW Dermatology in your estate planning. It will be money well spent. Thank you.